What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors refuses to tolerate the increasingly aggressive behavior of late-night television's most divisive host? The entertainment world was stunned when Brad Pitt was unexpectedly removed from Jimmy Kimmel Live after an interview that began like any other, but quickly turned into one of the most tense live confrontations in recent memory. The aftermath has been intense, with social media erupting and industry insiders shedding light on troubling issues behind the scenes of the popular late-night program. Before we get into the full story behind this unexpected moment, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss more real Hollywood stories that often go untold. Let us know your thoughts in the comments as the story unfolds. The night started as a typical taping of Jimmy Kimmel Live. The audience was full of energy, excited to see Brad Pitt, who had come to promote his latest film. While everything seemed routine on the surface, the crew appeared unusually tense, a sign few noticed until later. Brad arrived at the studio in his usual relaxed style, stopping to greet fans and pose for pictures, completely unaware of what lay ahead. According to individuals close to the show, Kimmel had been irritable throughout the day, reportedly lashing out at staff and making excessive demands. "He's always been a bit difficult," said one crew member, speaking on condition of anonymity. "But recently, it's gotten worse. The personality you see on camera isn't the same once filming stops." When Brad was introduced and walked onto the stage, the crowd erupted with applause. He waved, shook Kimmel's hand, and took his seat. At first, the interview proceeded normally. Kimmel asked about Brad's new movie and his collaboration with the director. Brad responded with his usual thoughtful answers, occasionally adding in the light humor fans love him for. The interview took a sharp turn when Kimmel suddenly shifted the conversation to Brad's private life, clearly catching the actor off guard. "So Brad, we all know about your messy divorce," Kimmel said with a smug grin. "Want to give our viewers something juicy?" Brad's face noticeably changed. While staying composed, he was clearly uneasy with where the conversation was going. "Jimmy, I think we both know that's not why I'm here," he replied evenly. "I'd prefer to keep the focus on the film, if that's okay with you." Instead of respecting his guest's clearly stated boundaries, Kimmel pushed further. "Come on, Brad. People want answers. You can't come on my show and only talk about what you want." The audience's laughter started to fade, replaced by an uncomfortable silence, as the tension between the host and his guest became more apparent. Brad shifted slightly in his chair but stayed composed. "Actually, Jimmy, that's exactly how these appearances work. We agree on the topics beforehand, and my personal life was clearly off limits." What viewers didn't see was that Brad's team had indeed arranged strict interview guidelines, which Kimmel was now knowingly disregarding. A representative from Brad's publicity team later confirmed that extensive conversations had taken place with the show's producers, particularly to ensure that private matters, especially involving his family and current legal issues, were not brought up. Rather than backing down, Kimmel leaned in further, his tone now noticeably dismissive. "That's not how things go on this show, Brad. My audience expects honest, unfiltered discussions, not polished talking points." The shift in the room was obvious. What began as an entertaining segment had now turned uneasy, with the studio audience falling silent as the conflict played out in real time. Brad took a moment before responding, clearly trying to defuse the situation. "Jimmy, I've always respected your work, but this doesn't feel constructive. There's so much we can talk about: the film, my career, even broader industry topics. But my personal life, especially anything involving my kids, is off limits," and that was agreed upon. Kimmel's expression hardened. Those familiar with him behind the scenes recognized the signs. The temper he's been rumored to unleash on his staff was now surfacing in front of the cameras. "Don't tell me how to run my show, Brad," Kimmel said sharply, his usual on-air charm gone. "You Hollywood types always want to dictate everything. This is my show, and I set the terms." A heavy silence filled the studio. Brad, taken aback by the remark, remained calm. "I'm not trying to take control, Jimmy. I'm simply asking that we stick to what we agreed upon before coming out here." During the following commercial break, Eyewitnesses described intense discussions between Brad's team and the show's production staff. Brad stayed in his seat, quietly scrolling through his phone, and clearly avoiding eye contact with Kimmel, who stood to the side in conversation with his writers. When the broadcast resumed, the atmosphere had only grown more tense. Kimmel returned to the screen, with a passive-aggressive remark, disguised as an apology. "Sorry if I hit a nerve there, Brad. I guess some subjects are just too delicate for you." At that moment, Brad decided he'd reached his limit. Setting aside his usual calm demeanor, he addressed Kimmel directly. "You know what, Jimmy? I've been in this business long enough to recognize when someone is trying to stir up controversy at my expense, just to boost ratings. That might be your approach, but I'm not going to take part in it." The audience reacted with surprise. Brad Pitt, widely known for his polite and easygoing public image, had just taken a clear stand. But those who know him well weren't shocked. "Brad is incredibly patient and respectful," said a longtime associate. "But he's also someone with strong values. He won't stand for intimidation, regardless of someone's position or influence." Kimmel's expression turned tense. The cameras briefly caught his hands tightening around the edges of his desk. "So you're accusing me of trying to ambush you for ratings?" he asked, his voice lowered and tight. "I'm not implying anything," Brad responded calmly. "I'm saying it directly, and judging by your reaction, it looks like we both understand exactly what's going on." What followed stunned the studio, and quickly made waves online. Kimmel, unaccustomed to being openly challenged on his own platform, visibly lost his composure. The familiar on-screen personality gave way to the off-camera behavior that some in the industry had quietly spoken about for years. Cut to commercial, Kimmel ordered his crew, but the director, clearly caught off guard, didn't react immediately, allowing the cameras to capture what happened next. Kimmel leaned in, pointing a finger in Brad's direction. "You think you can come on my show and speak to me like that?" he said, his voice low but clear enough to be picked up by the nearby microphones. "Do you even know who you're talking to?" Brad didn't flinch, keeping his gaze steady. "I know exactly who you are, Jimmy. The real question is, do you? Because this isn't how someone who claims to respect their guests should act." The room remained quiet. Audience members watched in disbelief, and a few began filming on their phones, realizing they were witnessing an unusual moment. These clips would soon circulate widely on social media, offering undeniable proof of what had taken place. "You're finished here," Kimmel snapped. "Leave the stage." Brad seemed briefly surprised, as if uncertain he'd heard correctly. He let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Are you seriously asking me to leave, because I wouldn't let you go against what we agreed on?" "Security," Kimmel called out, motioning to the guards stationed around the studio. "Please escort Mr. Pitt from the premises." The audience reacted with a mix of shock, confusion, and disapproval. Some stood in protest, others voiced their frustration directly at Kimmel. Remaining composed despite the tense situation, Brad raised his hand slightly to calm the security team. "That won't be necessary," he said in a steady tone. "I can leave on my own." He turned to the audience and offered a sincere smile, a stark contrast to the host's visible frustration. "Apologies you had to see this. Certainly not the evening any of us had in mind." As Brad walked toward the exit, an audience member called out, "We're with you, Brad," prompting a wave of supportive applause. The security team, now clearly uneasy about the situation, simply stood aside. Brad nodded respectfully to them and exited backstage, while the clapping grew louder, shifting into what felt like a quiet protest of Kimmel's conduct. After Brad's departure, Kimmel, clearly unsettled, but attempting to resume control, tried to brush off the moment. "Well, that was something," he said with a stiff chuckle. "Looks like some folks can't handle a little teasing, huh?" But the reaction was telling. The audience remained silent. The cameras even captured several people quietly getting up and leaving the taping. Backstage, Brad's team quickly got to work addressing the situation. Despite the incident, Brad himself remained calm. "It's unfortunate it went this way," he reportedly told his publicist. "But there's a line, and he crossed it. I'm not going to sit there and be disrespected just to serve someone's ratings strategy." Meanwhile, the show's production staff found themselves scrambling. With another segment still to film, they were left managing a room full of uncomfortable energy. Conversations among audience members reflected genuine surprise and disappointment in Kimmel's behavior. It was like watching a completely different person, one audience member later told entertainment outlets. One moment he was the TV host we all know, and the next, he was harsh, aggressive, even hostile. I don't think I'll see him the same way again. Producers tried to recover by distributing free merchandise and attempting to build enthusiasm for the remaining guest, but the shift in tone was unmistakable. The rest of the taping felt strained. Kimmel's humor didn't land, and the audience's responses were minimal and subdued. As Brad exited the building, fans and media waiting outside noticed his early departure and began asking questions. True to form, Brad paused briefly to acknowledge them. "Sometimes things don't go as expected," Brad said in his usual calm, understated tone. "That's really all I can say for now." But the story was far from over. By the time Brad reached his vehicle, footage of the exchange was already making rounds online. Audience members, equipped with smartphones and disturbed by what they had witnessed, made sure Kimmel's actions couldn't be edited out or ignored in the final broadcast. Within hours, the hashtag #KimmelKickedBrad was trending. Viewers and celebrities alike voiced strong support for Brad, while openly criticizing Kimmel's conduct. The incident quickly dominated entertainment headlines. Several past guests began to share their own uneasy experiences on the show. "What happened with Brad isn't an isolated case," one actress said anonymously. "Jimmy can be harsh when things don't go his way. The difference is, Brad had the platform and self-respect to call it out. A lot of us just stayed quiet because we didn't think we had another option." A former writer from the show backed up these claims. "There's a reason turnover is so high," they noted. "What viewers saw with Brad is the same version of Jimmy we've dealt with behind the scenes. The friendly persona is just for the camera." The network responded swiftly with a neutral, carefully crafted statement, referring to it as an unfortunate incident without assigning responsibility. "We appreciate all our guests and aim to foster meaningful and engaging conversations," the statement read. "We regret that last night's episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live fell short of those expectations." Meanwhile, Brad's team chose not to issue a reactive statement, instead maintaining a respectful silence. This measured approach only strengthened Brad's public image, with widespread public sentiment firmly on his side. Industry insiders began to question the lasting impact on Kimmel's reputation. "A moment like this can have long-term consequences," one seasoned entertainment journalist remarked. "In today's environment, authenticity matters, and poor behavior doesn't go unnoticed." Behind the scenes, reports suggested Kimmel was extremely upset by the fallout. He allegedly shifted blame onto his staff and demanded a new strategy to reshape public perception. However, his team reportedly told him that the raw footage circulating online made damage control nearly impossible. By the following morning, the story had grown beyond typical celebrity news. It had sparked a wider conversation around power dynamics in the entertainment industry and how guests are treated on talk shows. Media commentators were calling it a turning point, one that could lead to serious changes in how late-night television operates, moving forward. When the heavily edited version of the broadcast finally aired, viewers quickly noticed the clear cuts around the exchange. The show attempted to downplay the confrontation, portraying Brad's departure as occurring during a commercial break and offering a vague excuse about a scheduling conflict. However, this effort at managing the fallout backfired once audiences compared it to the unfiltered footage already widely circulated online. One viral social media post summed up the sentiment: "They're trying to gaslight everyone. We all saw what actually happened." The show's official social media channels were soon overwhelmed with critical comments. Many longtime viewers expressed disappointment and declared they wouldn't be tuning in again. Meanwhile, several major advertisers, wary of being associated with the controversy, quietly began suspending their sponsorships while awaiting more details. Brad made his first public appearance 3 days later at a long-planned charity event. Reporters immediately focused on the incident with Kimmel, but Brad responded with typical composure. "Everyone has off days," he said, showing a level of grace that some felt was missing in the original exchange. "I just think that when someone invites you into their space, be it their home or their show, mutual respect should be a given. When clear boundaries are discussed, they need to be honored." That's really what I was addressing. Asked whether he'd heard from Kimmel since, Brad's brief response spoke volumes. "No," he said, "but that's all right. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words." In contrast, Kimmel was notably absent from his show for the rest of the week. The network described it as a previously unannounced vacation, though insiders later clarified it was a mandated pause. "It wasn't optional," said a source familiar with the situation. "He was told to step back while they figured out how to manage the fallout." Internal meetings have been constant, and there's real concern that this could mark the decline of the show. Despite the break, those who saw Kimmel during that time noted little change in his attitude. He reportedly remained adamant that he had done nothing wrong and believed the public would eventually. This lack of self-awareness only deepened executives' concerns about the situation. When Kimmel eventually returned the following week, the episode opened with a scripted apology. "I want to talk about what happened last week with Brad Pitt," he began in a restrained tone. "Things escalated, and I handled it poorly. I've apologized to Brad and to our audience." While the statement appeared sincere on the surface, it quickly lost credibility as he pivoted into a set of jokes that seemed to downplay the incident and indirectly suggest Brad had overreacted. The public response was immediate, with many criticizing the apology as disingenuous and indicative of a refusal to take full accountability. Brad, for his part, chose not to comment publicly on the apology. He neither accepted nor rejected it, maintaining a composed silence. This approach only strengthened his public image, with many applauding his professionalism in the face of ongoing scrutiny. In the weeks that followed, the long-term effects for Kimmel began to surface. The show's ratings dropped significantly, with many former viewers following through on their pledge to stop watching. Several high-profile celebrities quietly canceled their planned appearances, unwilling to be linked to the controversy or risk facing a similar situation. Internally, the show's work environment reportedly worsened. Encouraged by the public exposure of Kimmel's conduct, staff members started speaking out about what they described as a long-standing toxic culture. Human resources complaints surged, prompting the network to open an internal review. "It's like a floodgate opened," said one crew member. "For years we just accepted that outbursts and disrespect came with the job. Now people are realizing that's not okay. No one should have to endure that kind of treatment at work." Concerned about both the growing PR crisis and the risk of legal challenges, network executives quietly began exploring new directions for the show. Conversations about potential replacements for Kimmel took place behind closed doors. Meanwhile, Brad appeared to come out of the incident with his reputation not only intact but enhanced. Public support for his refusal to tolerate disrespect remained strong. Several talk show hosts, recognizing the moment, invited him to appear on their programs to promote his film under more respectful conditions. He eventually accepted an offer from a competing network where the tone was notably more professional and focused. The interview earned widespread praise for its depth and civility, offering a clear contrast to the previous experience. The incident also sparked wider discussion in the entertainment industry about the power imbalance in celebrity interviews and how some talk shows have shifted toward creating viral content at the expense of meaningful conversation. In response, a number of prominent hosts announced updates to their formats, pledging to work more closely with guests to set boundaries and outline topics in advance. Industry insiders emphasized that the significance of this event stemmed largely from Brad's standing in Hollywood. When someone like Brad Pitt says enough,
"It resonates," said a veteran publicist. He had the platform and security to walk away without fear of fallout. Sadly, many rising talents don't have that same option, which is why certain behaviors have gone unchecked for so long. As time went on, the incident became a clear warning within the industry. Kimmel's reputation took a hit that many believe may be difficult to recover, while Brad was widely respected for calmly asserting his boundaries. The full consequences for Kimmel are still unfolding as analysts continue to track how the next. One thing is clear, those brief but revealing moments on stage marked a turning point. When one of Hollywood's most respected figures calmly stood up to one of television's most influential hosts, the message was loud and clear: disrespect, no matter how subtle or casual, is no longer going unchallenged. What's your take on the exchange between Brad Pitt and Jimmy Kimmel? Was Brad right to push back, or should he have handled things differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown of one of Hollywood's most talked about moments insightful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay updated with the real stories behind the headlines. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.